I was 12 years old the first time that I saw one. I'd never seen anything like it before. And I couldn't get it out of my head. Where do they come from? What are they capable of? And how do I get one? And for the next 30 years, it haunted me. Always on my mind, but just slightly out of reach. Welcome back to the Dutchman's Den, everybody. I'm JT the Dusty Dutchman, and the idea of a titanium bike has always been there until today when it's finally here. Today is a big day. First, I'm going to talk about why I bought this bike. Then we're going to build this bike. And when it's done, I'm going to explain to you why I believe that this bike is going to be the mechanical representation of what cycling means to me. So to get things started today, I want to explain why I bought this bike. But to do that, we got to go visit an old friend. This is my 2019 Niner RLT9 all-road bike. I identify as a mountain biker. But it seems that every year I ride this bike more and more and more, whether it's gravel riding or road riding or bike paths. And a lot of my future plans involve more riding on a bike like this, like longer rides or bike packing. But over the years I've identified two things that really negatively affect the comfort level on this bike. The first is that this is an aluminum frame, so naturally it's a little stiff. Even though I have carbon seat posts, carbon wheels, carbon fork, carbon handlebars, after a bunch of miles, it still feels pretty harsh. And the other issue is, I think all along this bike has been too small for me. Just recently I did some measurements to see, and turns out this bike actually is quite a bit smaller than I thought it was, which explains a lot. So, all things considered, this was the obvious choice for this year's upgrade. Okay, but why titanium? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there are a few reasons. It has one of the highest strength to weight ratios of any metal. It's extremely durable, and it doesn't fatigue like aluminum. It will easily handle all the extra weight associated with bike packing. It's also more compliant than aluminum and some carbon, depending on geometry and wall thickness. It should last a lifetime. Oh, and then there's just the small benefit to the fact that it looks like a piece of artwork. And then specifically, why did I go with Bearclaw? Probably 3 or 4 years ago at the Iceman Cometh Challenge up in Michigan. I saw one of these for the first time in person and absolutely fell in love with the design and just the style. Plus they're based out of the UP of Michigan, and I love the fact that it's a Midwest brand. So now that you know why I bought it, it's time to build it. And to do that, we're gonna need some parts. Sorry, old friend. All right, the good news is we got parts. The bad news is we had to sacrifice the Niner, so sorry about that. But there's a reason for that. I've actually never ridden a titanium bike of any kind ever. So my plan was to try to transfer as many parts as I possibly can from the Niner over to the Bearclaw, so that when I finally get that first ride, I'll know that any new experience that I have will be attributed specifically to the titanium frame. And in regards to the parts, again, most of them came off the Niner with the exception of a few parts that I bought due to compatibility issues, but nothing too fancy, pretty basic drivetrain, no electronics yet, but I did go ahead and get a few maintenance pieces, bottom bracket, new chain, new shifter cable, some new brake pads, which I like to do a lot of those things pretty much anytime I do a build. All right, to start, I'm gonna cut the head tube down, hang the handlebars, lube up the bearings, do the crank and the bottom bracket, and the seat and seat tube. Don't forget to grease those bearings up good. Well, it took me 2 cuts to get it right, but you know what they say. Measure once, cut twice. Do they say that? So the reach on this bike's a little bit longer, so I went with a straight seat post instead of a setback seat post. I also went with the Bearclaw Titanium, which I've never tried before. It looks lovely. And it's also a 31.6 millimeter seat post diameter, which is awesome because it's super dropper friendly if I end up going that route in the future. Who doesn't love a nice dub bottom bracket? All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna install this brand new, straight out of the box, crank set with this perfectly round chainring on it. No, I'm not. I'm gonna put a little chainring on it. Come on. So this time around I went with wolf tooth. It's a 40 tooth oval chainring, and I know it's not for everybody, but you know, either oval lives in your heart or it doesn't. So before we go any farther, I wanna run these cables, and I think I may have found the first issue. I can see they put a lot of time and effort into beautifully welding in these cable guides. Normally you would see just a regular cutout hole in the frame to access the cables, and then they would use plastic or rubber grommet like this. The benefit to that style is the hole is big enough that you can slide in some of this cable buffering rubber, which helps to stop some of the cable slapping inside the down tube. Now, when you do have to run internal cables on a frame that doesn't have an internal sleeve to guide you, it is nice when they send these little chase wires to help guide the cable through. So the cables are all routed, and I do prefer the internally routed cables just because I like the cleaner, more uncluttered look, but the downside definitely is a little trickier to install, and now I gotta bleed the brakes. Next up, we're gonna tackle the drivetrain, put the wheels on, and then just a couple accessories. That's interesting. This axle was made on Earth. Well, I think we're done. Other than some just tuning and tweaking, but it's built and it's glorious. But now the time has come to weigh it. Now, the Niner weighed 21.6 pounds, and aluminum, although it is stiff, is also pretty light. So I'm not really expecting much lighter than that, but let's see what we got. Wow, 20.9. So 7/10 or 3/4 of a pound lighter than the Niner. Well, it's done. What do you think? I think it looks amazing. I'm super happy with the way the build went. I'm super happy with the way it looks, and I can't wait to get it out and ride it. One of the things I love the most about cycling is it's as much about expression as it is about the ride. And this bike is a mechanical expression of who I am. It's a little bit old school in that it's got a tubular welded design, and it's got some new school in its carbon fiber parts and some of the CNC titanium parts that are welded in this frame. And like me, it being a titanium frame makes it just a little different. And when it comes to the ride, my options are endless. And with the wheel and tire options on this bike, I can go take it on mountain bike trails, I can do gravel, I can do road, I can do bike packing. So not only is this bike a representation of myself, everything I love about cycling is represented right here. So what's next? Well, you and I are gonna ride this bike for the first time together very soon. After that, this drivetrain just might go digital. I'm gonna do a whole bunch of testing on different terrain with different tire and wheel sizes. And then if I can get anybody to go with me, I'm gonna try bike packing again. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, you know what to do. But more importantly, what I'd like you to do is get outside and get on your bike, because good things will happen. See ya.